Hey everybody, and Tony here with a review of Richard Strauss's Salome, which I saw at the Staatsoper Unter den Linden. The conductor was Thomas Gugeis, the production was done by Hans Neuenfels, the assistant director was Philipp Lossau, the sets and costumes were done by Reinhard von der Tannen, the assistant set designer was Katrin Hauer, the choreographer was Sommer Ulrichsson, and the lights were handled by Stefan Bollega. I was quite interested in seeing this particular production of Salome because Ausrina Stundite was going to sing the title role, and accompanying her was Vincent Wolfsteiner, who sang the role of Herodes. I will gladly talk about the singers much later in this review, but first, my thoughts on the production. If you know me, I have a huge love-hate relationship with Hans Neuenfels and his concepts. There are times that I am quite interested with how he manages to take certain liberties to the point where it feels like an entirely different opera, and there are times that I do kind of admire his whole devil-may-care approach into getting his productions of certain operas and kind of giving them a weird yet extremely unorthodox spin. With his production of Salome, I was not completely hooked, nor intrigued, nor even grabbed or captivated by the overall look, feel, and atmosphere of this particular production. My main problem lies within the overall stolidness and just how monochrome everything looked. It was all in black, and there was some garish white light being thrown in the mix, and there were times that I was not completely captivated all the way through. There were some quirky, albeit completely unorthodox stage directions, with having Johanna Ahn encapsulated in a bullet-shaped tube instead of the cisterns we would usually associate with, and instead of having a luxurious palace where we would usually see Herodes, Herodias, and Salome along with the other guests, we see Herodes, Herodias, and Salome in the very first act sitting side by side as if to show that yes, they are a royal family, but they're kind of dysfunctional. And Salome basically starts off the opera in a sort of princess-like gown, which is all in black, complete with a hairband with a crescent moon on top. But as soon as Oscar Wilde enters the scene for Salome to meet up with Johanna Ahn, he basically ends up taking away her skirt and her hairband to make her be in something a little bit more revealing but still have long sleeves and long pants to show that she has gone from being mommy's little princess who loves playing dress up to a young woman who just wants to feel a man's touch and to kiss a man's lips and get herself down with all of the intimacy, especially with someone who is a lot older than her, such as Johanna Ahn. Speaking of Johanna Ahn and his head, we don't just see one bust of Johanna Ahn's head. We see hundreds of them, probably to show the labyrinth that Salome has gotten herself into in terms of finding that supposed love between her, the princess of Judea, and Johanna Ahn, the prophet, who is trying his hardest to not only serve his God, but to preach the word of Jesus Christ. I guess one can interpret Oscar Wilde stripping Salome of her princess-like gown and even having a lot of busts of Johanna Ahn's head as a sort of metaphor to show how Salome has gone from being this girl who is so sheltered in the lap of luxury to a young woman who so badly wants to experience love, a man's touch, and even lots of intimacy. On top of that, this production also manages to hammer in the fact that Salome is still a young woman who wants to experience all of these intimate things and wants to experience what it's like to feel comfortable in her own sexuality, and of course, want to have sex with a man that she so covets. Speaking of sexy, the Dance of the Seven Veils wasn't particularly sexy, in my opinion, because I felt like there could have been a little bit more skin, a little bit more sensuality, hot colors, hot-blooded passion and action, and it felt like it was just Herodias trying to make herself look sexy by trying to move around in the most provocative way, only for Herodes to basically not want anything to do with her. And regardless of what I thought about the production in its entirety, there were some costumes that looked pretty good on certain singers, whether it be the suits of the 5 Jews, or even the guards who looked absolutely magnificent, or even Salome's first act outfit. They looked quite lovely to look at. Oh, and especially Herodias' gorgeous looking gown, even though I would have loved to have a lot more warm colors, vibrant colors, a more hot-blooded atmosphere, a lot more intimacy, and a lot more spice in the overall look, feel, atmosphere, and costumes of this production of Salome, because I did feel kind of bored with seeing just 1 or 2 colors all around the stage. So overall, I was not really impressed with the production. There were times that it did have some interesting concepts, and I did enjoy some of them, but it was not enough to grab me nor persuade me to root for it much further. And this kind of cements how I feel about Hans Neuenfels and his productions and his overall visions of said operas. There were times that the liberties taken were rather questionable, and I was not really impressed with the overall package. It could use a whole lot more vibrant colors, it could use a whole lot more of the color palette, but it ended up making me feel kind of bored with the overall look and feel of Hans Neuenfels' production of Salome. And now we get to the singers, starting off with Ausrina Stundite as Salome. I've been following her career for quite some time, as she seems to specialize in a lot of the full lyric and spinto soprano roles. Roles that she has done in her career range from Elisabeth from Tannhäuser to Cho-Cho-san from Madame Butterfly. And as I saw her as Salome, I was quite intrigued with how she was able to embody Salome, both the ice princess side of her, which is quite cold, calculating, and always wanting to make sure that her plan goes well and swiftly, to that inquisitive teenage girl persona that she basically has a curiosity of the world around her and even the man that she is infatuated with. She manages to play those aspects of Salome quite well. However, when it comes to her voice, it did leave a lot to be desired. While it did have a nice top, and while it also had a pretty fine color to it, especially considering how much of a fine full lyric soprano voice she had, there were times that there were inconsistencies which marred her overall vocal performance as Salome. The inconsistencies found in Ausrina Stundita's voice mainly come from the lower register. Try as she might to sing the lower notes, but they sounded really hollow and unsupported. Moreover, there were several times that her lower register was essentially drowned out by the orchestra. And if you know me, I have in my ears a lot of favorite Salomes of the past, ranging from Lili Janel to Astrid Varnay, to Birgit Nilsson, to Gwyneth Jones, and even to Grace Bumbry. Those singers who have sung Salome were a lot more well supported and well coordinated in their registers and for bringing everything together, both the high and the low. Moreover, they were even able to fulfill the vocal demands of Salome really well, especially Astrid Varnay and Birgit Nilsson, who were the complete packages. But if you ask me, Birgit Nilsson is definitely my most ideal voice for Salome because of how much she was able to use her head voice so well and how she managed to coordinate everything in such a wonderful package. With Osrina Stundita as Salome, I felt like the registers were collapsed. I felt that her head voice was not really that well supported, and there were times that I felt that the chest tones could use a lot more work. Yes, as I stated before, she did have a fine top, but at a price. There were times that she hit the top notes with a spreaded mouth, which should never be the case, as her mouth could have been a lot more vertical so that there could be a whole lot more focus on the high notes. And I seriously hope that Osrina Stundita keeps on improving her technique because she does have good material to work off of. It's just that her technique needs a lot more ironing and a lot more polishing, especially when it comes to coordinated registers. She needs to make sure that her chest voice is well activated and especially ensure that the head tones and the chest tones work together in harmony and not end up separated. As she was a decent actress, but she needs a whole lot more work on her voice so that it could bloom a lot more properly. The material that she has is there. It's just that her voice and her overall technique need a lot more polishing if she is to reach greater heights. Then we have her mother, Herodias, sung by Marina Prudenskaya, and she definitely stole the show tonight as this harridan of a queen. She was able to give her a great amount of stateliness and some cattiness to be found with this queen. She managed to also use her svelte and sleek figure to make Herodias quite elegant in terms of how she moved around the stage, though she was also prone to being quite hammy. More than anything, Marina Prudenskaya's vocal assets were still intact. She continued to make a great use of her smoky, absolutely gorgeous, and clean mezzo-soprano voice to the greatest of her abilities. Her voice could be a lot richer, fuller, and more powerful if she keeps on working on those chest tones, because what I have in my ears are all of the great Herodiases of the past, especially the likes of Elisabeth Högen, Georgine von Milinkovic, Blanche Thiebaum, and even Astrid Varnay late in her career. And we were talking about mezzos. What I also have in my ears are the likes of Elena Obraztsova, Alexandrina Milcheva, Ebestignani, Elena Nicolai, Fedora Barbieri, Giulietta Simeonato, Gianna Pederzini, and Giuseppina Zinetti. I would highly recommend these aforementioned mezzo-sopranos for Miss Prudenskaya to listen to so that she could have a better understanding of how a true dramatic mezzo should sound like. With a lot more core, a lot better and more fully developed vocal coordination, especially in both head and chest, and singing everything with a whole lot more abandon and power. Indubitably, Marina Prudenskaya has great material to work off of, and I do not want to see her given to complacency because her star continues to shine with every role she gets herself into, and I would love to see her take on a lot more interesting challenges, and of course, keep developing those chest tones so that they'll sound richer, a lot more multidimensional, and of course, gain in strength, which is my biggest hope for Marina Prudenskaya as a singing actress. Petazon was quite decent as Narabot. I first heard him 5 years ago singing the role of Ferrando from Mozart's Cose fan tutte at the La Scala in Milan. And here he was taking on the more spinto/dramatic tenor role of Narabot, the captain of the guard. While I thought his voice was decent, and while I thought he managed to sing everything with such abandon, there are times I felt like he was singing a lot in the mask, which shouldn't always be the case, as his vocal energy should be prioritized on the pharynx and on those chest tones, especially coordinated chest tones. All he needs to do in order to make his vocal performance a lot better is to get rid of the mask singing so that he doesn't sound nasal, because he does have great material to work off of. It's just that his voice could show a lot more sheen and a lot more brilliance if he keeps everything in the pharynx. Moreover, I do have in my ears a lot of favorite Narabots of the past. Those include the likes of Hans Hopf, James King, and Wiesław Ochman. Those gentlemen were indubitably great Heldentenors, dramatic tenors, and spinto tenors who had such metallic qualities in their voices. With Peterson, I felt like he kind of lacked that metallic quality that I love in many a spinto/dramatic tenor. And I'm sure that once he keeps on developing his technique in the right way, we will definitely have a tenor who could be able to sing a lot fuller and richer, more lyrical roles, and someone who could be able to tackle the meatier roles in the future. So here's hoping that Peterson will keep on developing his vocal technique in the right way and not give in to any bad habits whatsoever. I was pretty intrigued by Vincent Wolfsteiner as Herodes, as he was an absolutely dedicated singing actor in terms of how he was able to bring the neurotic and absolutely paranoid side of this king, but also make him quite the leering pervert, which made him absolutely wonderful as a singing actor. I basically knew this tenor by name only, and he seems to specialize in a lot of spinto and dramatic tenor roles, and even the Heldentenor role of Siegfried. It is safe to say that he boasts quite a huge repertoire, and the way he was able to sing those high notes and the way he was able to pace himself so well and even give this role the appropriate amount of sleaze was quite brilliant in his own special way. Sure, I do have at my disposal darker, richer, more voluminous, and a lot more powerful sounding voices who would specialize as Herodes, such as Setz Vanholm, Ramon Vinay, Hans Beira, Rainer Goldberg, and many other great Heldentenors of the past, because if you know me, I would love to hear a true Heldentenor sing the role of Herodes, someone who has a baritonal quality to his voice, someone whose tessitura is wide-ranging, rough and dark, and someone who could be able to sing over an orchestra. Sure, Vincent Wolfsteiner did just that. He was able to have the guts to sing over the orchestra and do so in a way that made him fearless and determined as a singing actor. However, there were times that I felt like he did put a lot of his voice in the mask when it should have been put in the pharynx, and especially when it comes to producing great chest tones and even have a more harmonious quality to his voice. But it's safe to say that Vincent Wolfsteiner also did stand toe-to-toe with Marina Prudenskaya as Herodias, as they were able to play off their love-hate relationship really well. So I still have to give him a lot of kudos for what he had to accomplish as a singing actor. Thomas Johannes Mayer was an absolutely wonderful Johannaan, and while he did have a rich sounding and masculine, virile, baritone voice, which I definitely love in him. There were times that his voice did show some signs of a tremolo creeping in, and there were times that he did sound a little bit unsupported. But regardless of whatever gripes I had with Thomas Johannes Meyer, I still have to give him a lot of credit for what he was able to accomplish as Johanaan. He was tall, strong, and absolutely virile in this role, which made him all the more remarkable to witness, and I was practically glued to my seat every time he appeared on stage. So he did a very fine job in terms of embodying one of his signature roles. The only thing he needs to do is get rid of the tremolos and keep on using those chest tones and build up on them so that his voice could gain a lot more in power and in richness. Annika Schlicht was absolutely gorgeous as the page boy, and I continue to be absolutely enthralled with the development of her career. She proved herself to be an absolutely amazing singing actress, and the technical prowess she had to offer was phenomenal. She was able to not only sing the part with flying colors, but also act the part well. She made the page boy someone who is quite concerned with how these obsessions keep on happening, and someone who is filled with trepidation in terms of everything that is going to unfold. That's not going to also sound really pretty at all. And what more can I say about Annika Schlicht as a singing actress? She was absolutely brilliant from beginning to end. We also had such equally decent singing to be found in the 5 Jews, namely Ziad Nehme, Michael Smallwood, Matthew Pena, Andres Moreno Garcia, and David Ostrek, who also sang the role of the Cappadocian, as they were able to play off of each other so well and so brilliantly. Adam Kutny and Ulf Dirk Medla's graciously toned Nazarenes, Artu Kataya's handsomely toned First Soldier, and Eric Rosenius's equally decent Second Soldier, even though he does need to work on those chest tones, and Irene Olino's lovely Slave. So overall, the singing was kind of decent, even though it did have some hit and miss moments, especially from Osrina Stundita's Salome, and even from some of the minor roles. But when it came to the singers, the ones who really stole the show were Vincent Wolfsteiner, Marina Prudenskaya, Thomas Johannes Meyer, and Annika Schlicht, whose vocal prowess and absolute dedication to their craft were in full evidence, and they deserve the hugest amount of kudos I could ever give to them. And the conducting done by Thomas Gugeis was absolutely well done. He led the orchestra very well, he made sure that no one was left behind, and of course, the chorus and orchestra of the Staatsoper Unter den Linden were absolutely fabulous all around. So overall, with the production, I was not entirely impressed with, plus some singing that kind of left a little bit to be desired, even though there were some shining stars, and some very fine conducting done by Thomas Gugeis. This particular production of Salome was kind of alright in the overall scope. I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of people who did enjoy this production, and please, for those of you who enjoyed this production of Salome, and for those of you who also enjoyed the singers, please let me know what you really loved the most about them. And for those of you who also watched this particular production of Richard Strauss's Salome at the Staatsoper Unter den Linden, what'd you think of it? Did you feel that Vincent Wolfsteiner, Marina Prudenskaya, Thomas Johannes Meyer, and Annika Schlicht stole the show respectively as Herodes, Herodias, Johanaan, and the page boy? Did you feel that Osrina Stundita managed to do a fine job in spite of certain issues as Salome? Or did you feel that the singing was not really up to par? Comment below and let me know. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for my review of Mozart's Die Zauberflöte, also at the Staatsoper Unter den Linden. And I'll be talking about the Saturn production. So until then, good night, everybody, and happy holidays.